ends afterwards. So let's see where it goes from here. So hey guys, we don't have any fancy intros or anything. We're really just kicking this thing off. But welcome to 24/7 Comic Stream. Today we have a very special guest and co-host. We're going to introduce Sara, AKA Nerdy Barbie. Overall, I think it's been a really fun time. We'll talk a little bit more about our story. But then I also came back from ComicsPro. Oh, I'm getting a little feedback. 1 second. Just to show how much of an amateur I am, I left my stream on YouTube. So there we go. Okay, we're back. Anyways, so we're gonna introduce Sara. Number one, I just came back from ComicsPro and I had such a great time. It was super fun. So I want to talk a bit about that, and then we are going to go into some updates for Evermind, the Kickstarter, which I shipped out today. But I felt like it'd be cool to just give the audience and our backers a live update. And then the last thing is, you and I are going to talk a little bit about this concept we have called the Comic Book Club. So we're going to probably use that as more of like a live brainstorm session and then kind of see where it goes from there. So anyways, how are you doing today, Sara?
I'm doing so well. We've got a little bit of rain going on, so
yeah.
Woo, it's a fun dog walk, but we need it, I'm sure.
Nice. So I think it'd be good to kind of kick this off with the audience to let them learn more about your journey, your background, kind of how you came to be, and then we could talk a little bit about how we met and how we came to be here. But it's cool because we've been in conversation for a long time about this. So why don't you just take a few minutes and share more about your journey, your background, and kind of how you came to be?
Amazing. Well, I was born a geek. I had no choice in the matter. I remember some of my first memories just inheriting from my father classic Star Wars toys. And that's where it all started for me. So original Millennium Falcon, couple Boba Fett's with like the legs chewed off from my dogs growing up. And it just always stuck with me. I think for me, cosplay was my major focus. I was always obsessed with playing dress up. I was always obsessed with cartoons, Ninja Turtles, just kind of, I loved the fact that animation and comics could bend the rules of physics. I mean, I just loved seeing that like Tweety Bird, went into Sylvester's mouth because it was built like a nest that day. I just kind of it just, that always made sense to me. The irony, breaking all the rules, being able to like speak your mind politically without being immediately shut down. The different levels where a child and an adult can both read or watch the same thing and take completely different things out of it. I always stayed in that kind of mindset. So further on, the collection grew, got obsessed with different things, and then cosplay started becoming an even bigger thing a few years ago. So I've been very grateful and fortunate to be able to just go to the conventions as I would as a fan and also be able to dress up alongside it.
Yeah, and that's how we met as well, which is awesome.
Yes.
If it wasn't for cosplay, I don't think we would have met. So I'll share kind of my side. We were obviously in the last few years building 24/7 comics, and our first title came out last year called Evermind. And at the time, we were at San Diego Comic-Con, and what's fun is we'll share a little bit of a kind of a side connection that happened there as well. But I was basically passing out ash cans of Evermind #1. At the time, we call it Genesis. And we were really big on just making sure we connect with audiences that we felt are part of the culture and really living it. And so we went to a lot of cosplayers and we took photos with them. And we made it a point over the course of the weekend to chase down some of the best cosplayers we've seen. And then if you go to 247comics.com, you can actually see the gallery of all the folks that took photos with the ash cans. And you're one of them. And we remember like walking by, you walk by from afar, and then everyone's like, oh my gosh, you see that Catwoman? And I was like, yeah. I was like, and I chased you down. And it was hilarious because I really hit you up, and you're super welcoming and super warm. And what's just super cool about, learning more about, the book and what we're doing.
And why I was even there.
Yeah,
and I remember that so vividly because I actually was running into the convention late, and someone had swiped my badge. Literally like 15 minutes before I met you, I was in a full pleather suit, hair down. It was kind of humid and gross, and someone had just stolen my badge, and I had no idea that it was actually very easy to replace. So I was actually running into the convention when I saw you, and you just had this amazing energy. You were so welcoming. You made me feel better, and you didn't even know what was wrong with me. And then I was so fortunate to meet the artist, and I had actually had 2 previous comic books from your publishing from other cons, and it just, the connection was just perfect.
That's fun. No, because Sean was like, when you came over and said hi to Sean, and we were like, oh man, she's like a true fan. And what was funny though was how we even started talking was a mutual friend who literally texted me like, I don't know, like 20 minutes later. I was like, oh my God, you just met my best friend. I was like, what?
I ran up to her right after that. I was like, I just met the coolest person. Like, look what he gave me. I had this great comic book and it was signed. And she knew how like chaotic my last hour had been. And that's my best friend. Happy birthday, Janelle. It was her birthday yesterday. Yeah. So I just got to see her, and she was just so excited that we had connected even last year. So we've come a long way in a short amount of time, and I just am so excited to see where this takes us.
Yeah, no, super excited. And it's funny, we've stayed in touch all this time, and we'd meet like maybe like once a month or something and just ideate, because when, you know, I think you've been pretty close to like the journey of 24/7 and what we've been doing. And a lot of the Kickstarter stuff was pretty hard. And like I found ourselves having to get out of our comfort zone to really start getting on streams and whatnot. And you know, it was cool to find out that you've kind of always wanted to do this, and you've had like this whole setup. And so we were just thinking about, man, it'd be cool to have a co-host, and you're like so down for it. And so
I've always wanted to be your sidekick, and finally,
yeah. So no, we're in it now, and so it's been great. I think we've took a few meetings over the last few months thinking about the approach, and I think we'll touch on this later. But there is this kind of one core idea that we want really run with. But in the meantime, I want to actually take a moment to check our stream on YouTube to see how's it going. I feel like when I watch other people's streams, there's always like people chatting in there. This is our first one, so I'm not going to expect a giant crew of people here, but I want to just make sure we're streaming. So
I love it.
Well,
make sure I
muted
this. I think this is beautiful just to get, I mean, we're comfortable. We are unscripted. We just kind of love what we do. And I love that this is the first chance to kind of feel everything out.
Yeah. So I think, you know, for us, this is recorded as well. And so we really want to take this and make sure that people see the historics of this. This is the very first, and we're going to evolve. Obviously, we're going to probably have some sort of opening. We're going to like properly really promote it. But I think this was also a good way to just, you know, put into stone, and we want the community to kind of grow with us. And I think that's what we came to, right? As much as we brainstorm, both of us are kind of like idea people. So we just kept like stacking ideas, but we felt like, you know what, it'd be kind of cool to get the community to actually be involved with this process. So yeah, I think we're here today, and yeah, I'm excited.
You absolutely blew my mind from day one. For a publisher to come out and say, I want all comic books to be free one day, really captured me, and the passion that goes into what you do. I'm already learning so much, and I think we can definitely kind of have people that are maybe more like me that felt a little insecure because we hadn't always been a part of it. Maybe I tiptoed around it. I kind of like want to make it so accessible that anyone that's ever even thought about a comic book could join us and not only learn, but just see how fun it can be. It's not intimidating. You don't have to have a bunch of money. You don't have to have such a collection like Carl that he's actually going to start giving some of it away.
That's the goal.
I'm not giving you any of my stuff. I'm not giving any of you anything.
No, that's one of the big parts. Actually, I'm glad you brought it up. Like, one thing I told Sarah this when we first met was, I feel like I just have so much of it. I've definitely been blessed, and I'm shifting my collection in a different way. And there's a lot of comics in my collection that I would love to give away, because I think in the recent days, it's been really fun just sharing some comics with you, and then you actually diving in and reading them. And that's like the best thing ever, because when you read and you reflect and you're like, oh man, I love that story, like that definitely like encourages me to continue giving. And so I think since we last talked, I think I've given away so many like graphic novels already just to onboard people into what we're doing. And so I think we'll, I'll pull something out of the shelf later, and just remind me before we close to do a giveaway. So folks, if you're in this chat or you're watching, feel free to share with your friends. Let them know that we will be doing some giveaways later. I think Bill may have another stream going on with a lot of the comic art fans guys. So we might be competing, but hopefully some of the folks who start transitioning over later. But one of the things I want to talk about was ComicsPro. It was really super fun. I think it was my first time being there. I talked to a lot of publishers, and early on, Dinesh over at Bad Idea had told me like, hey, you gotta go to ComicsPro. And this is like 2 years ago. But recently I spoke to David over at Distillery, and he was like, Carl, I think if you want to truly start exploring what this comic industry looks and feel like, you gotta be a ComicsPro. So I went. And so what was really fun about ComicsPro, and I'll kind of go through the like who, what, why, and when. So I thought it'd be cool to I kind of laid it out. So the Who ComicsPro is basically like a trade organization, and they have been around for years. And I think over the time of comics, they've also evolved in many different ways. I can say right now, the group of people there is the form of and the evolution that I love, and where I want to be. And so there was three kind of categories of folks there. So one is the publisher, who are like, folks like myself, who's packaging and building stories and wanting to share the community. Number two are the distributors, who are the ones that initially back in the day was only one, was this Diamond Distribution. And now there's Lunar, there's like Penguin Random House, and there's other distributors that's competing now, which I think is a good thing. And three, most importantly, was the retailers. And so it was super fun. I think there's about 150 or so represented there of the 2,500 retail locations in America. And they were there just to like hear what the publishers had planned. And I didn't know what to expect, but what was really fun was the way it was formatted was basically it's like a conference. It's like almost like a summer camp, but we open up, we all hang out for a night dinner. And then the next day, the morning lunch, and at 1 in the afternoons, the publishers actually go up there and takes turn presenting what they're going to be doing the following year for the retailer. So the retailer get to see what books are coming out, some of the highlights that happened the year before, and then some of the vision and very inspiring speeches from some of these publishers as well. And so they did that throughout all the meals. And then in between, there's roundtables. And the roundtables are basically held by the publishers, and it allows, it's almost like a speed dating. So retailers in groups of like 4 to 5 can jump from table to table, and they get, I don't know, like 5 to 10 minutes to pitch what you're doing in a more intimate level. And then outside of that, in the evenings is where everyone, have dinner, share meals, break bread, and, drink together, hang out. And then the last night was a charity auction where everyone had brought items to donate. I wish I knew better to bring some stuff. I would have brought some stuff to donate, but people bid on them in order to kind of raise money for ComicsPro and the charity. So I had such a good time. And I think the most important piece of it all was the community building. So I think because I'm kind of a digital nerd in a way, I kind of explored and learned about comics as an industry from a bit of a weird outside bubble. But I feel like going into it, a lot of folks gave me a lot of insights before I went, but I think it met and was beyond the expectations for me, because there's a very interesting moment right now. I think last year the comic book industry actually took a pretty big hit, because during COVID it was actually really busy. Everyone was back in nostalgia. They loved comics. They were buying all their stuff again. But then I guess this past year, people are getting back to their real lives again, right? So I think entertainment spend has definitely been pulled back, and thus I think the comic book retailers are actually took a hit on the year. But what I saw and when I spoke to the retailers, there's also three categories. There's definitely more of the folks that's been around since the beginning. Definitely up there in age, been doing the comic thing for like 30, 40 years. They've owned their shops for a long time. Feels like the way they see things are just the way they see things, right? Then there's a second category of comic shop owners that were kind of, I would say, in the like 35 to 45 range, that has either inherited the comic book shop or have bought out the comic shop that they worked in all these years and are in this very like transitional mode. And then the third one, the audience was brand new shopkeepers like that are just starting up, and either they had a successful digital operation selling comics, or they're just fresh to the market and want to do something as a couple, right? And so it was really fun just being in the middle of it. And it also made me wonder like what ComicsPro was like 20, 30 years ago. And yes, Rod, we're actually doing some giveaways. I don't know if Sarah, you're seeing the chat as well, so we can feel free to chat with the audience and say hi as well. But yeah, so that was ComicsPro. That was a little bit of a recap.
So like a geeky summer camp. I didn't know about the whole sharing, the feedback that you get, and the category of new comic book shop owners, because I used to go and play Magic the Gathering at comic book shops when sales had started dwindling. So they were always looking for cool ways of bringing people back into the shop. And it seems like ComicsPro is kind of like a great way to kind of figure out what's working and what's not.
Yeah, in fact, let me show some of the slides that I pulled up here. Let me see. Window, there we go. Okay, so I took a bunch of photos. Can't access my screen. Darn it. So I can't access my screen for some reason. Share screen. All right, so I guess I need to figure out how to share my screen for future references. But basically, I'll just read what I saw. So there's like 4 missions for ComicsPro. They're there to promote, to advocate, to connect, and to educate. And so kind of going through, and love your thoughts on this. What's interesting is, they built a new logo. They created 2 things. They created the local comic shop day, and they created the 24-hour comic day, which I didn't know about, which I know about free comic book day, which is in May every year. Yeah. I actually didn't know about these 2 other things. So I got to dive a little deeper into that. Oh, they had a San Diego Comic-Con programming, which I also went to, and also visited their New York Comic-Con programming, which was kind of how I found out more about this whole thing. Open house I missed, and then they also participated in a bunch of panels. So this annual meeting was what I just attended. So that's kind of like categorically the things they put under promote. Advocate, like terms of sales, shipping costs of Diamond. So that was one of the big announcements. I didn't know Diamond had like such a complex system of shipping, where I think often comics margin has already been suffering, but I think it was like a cost center for them, so they actually was making revenue. So I think the big announcement was that they're just going to charge like a percentage. So I'm not sure how the economics work on that, but they were definitely super happy about it, like as far as the retailers go. And then there's a bunch of stuff around like getting out of the print graphic novels back from DC and Marvel, because a lot of times once they're print, a lot of these creators aren't around as much anymore. They stop printing, and people still want to read them, but they end up having to buy them on like secondary, and they actually cost more. And then there's something about full variant pricing, but I could share some of these slides later, and we could talk more in depth about it. Any other questions? Kind of me coming out from this.
Well, I definitely spoke to a few just local collectors, and they were saying that some of the challenges for them are if a certain shop not necessarily online, but in person where they most enjoy, if they don't get a large enough order, they just won't get the comics that they want.
Mm.
And then they end up having to wait around, try to find it later. And by then there's so many new things out. So even those announcements sound like that can make a huge impact.
Yeah, no, shelf space is a problem. And my local shop is Comics Factory in Pasadena. And George, the owner, kind of one thing he tells us is the way he thinks about managing his business is like a bookstore. He has to just be able to sell through whatever that he orders. And basically the whole concept is really that if he has inventory, then he ordered too much. And so I think it's interesting because he actually doesn't think about back issues at all. So because he operates more like a bookstore, his churn of new issues are a lot more precise, and his ordering has to be a lot more precise, which I thought was very interesting. So yeah, contextually, I think there's a lot of different ways. There's no one way to run a comic book store, but I do feel like yes, I think making sure you order just enough and not have too much back inventory, it's a super important skill set.
And you've started teaching me a little bit more about how much anticipation goes in. I mean, there are people that we've both listened to that kind of know what's going to be hot, but sometimes you have just a blockbuster out of nowhere and there's kind of that little like scramble to get a hold of it.
Yeah, like recently, Transformers was a huge one. Daniel Warren Johnson, like I probably sent you a lot of his stuff already, but he's one of my favorite creators of all time. And, he was the right guy for Transformers. And I think the folks, also the way it was introduced was like the right way, where, Kirkman actually introduced it through one of his creator-owned books. I thought that was genius in itself. And so I think that in itself is actually getting enough buzz. And for me, it's like proof that grassroots will always beat anything when it comes to marketing. Where if you can get the word of mouth going and like the fire burning in that way, that will always drive more traffic than anything else.
Absolutely. I think now might be a good time to introduce We Read It For You.
Oh yeah. So that's the other thing. Let's talk about that. I mean, why don't you share a little bit more about what we've discussed so far and what we've been thinking about, and then let's talk about some ideas.
I'm so excited about it. It's some people may be a little hesitant to invest in something that they can't kind of browse through or look through, or maybe they don't have someone that they necessarily trust as a reviewer yet. So some of our thoughts were just our two different perspectives reading a comic for you, just kind of our banter, a light synopsis, nothing that's going to spoil it, but if you're ready to get addicted to something, we'll let you know what we think.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about was like, often I'll give you these books, but I also want to kind of reread them myself.
Right.
And so we're thinking, man, like it's interesting because within the YouTube content, there's a lot of folks that just read comics. But I think it'd be, one of the most powerful things about comics is it's a very active type of consumption, right? You could read it as fast as you want. You could read it as slow as you want. You could pause at a certain page and have banter about it and talk about it, assess the characters. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about comics. And so, one of the things that, you and I talked about is like, okay, what if we actually, had the comic here and we actually went page to page, read it, and then kind of share our perspectives on each of these story plots and how we feel and how it kind of speaks to us.
Absolutely. I have a few friends with school-age children still, and I still am hearing sometimes comic books aren't reading. Like, it's not really reading. And I couldn't disagree more. I think it's a great way to get kids interested in reading. They move on to want to consume bigger books and bigger ideas, and maybe even being able to reach out not only to people our age, but younger people and be like, allow the access, get these into kids' hands. The more they read, that's not, a social media post, the better at this point.
Yeah, I know this. I mean, it's interesting because I feel like as much as like comics isn't reading, from what I learned from my sister-in-law is that a lot of the, I guess like elementary school curriculum are actually comic books.
I just found that out too.
Isn't that crazy? Like, like Dogman is the #1 selling comic in the nation, and I know they sell like millions of copies. But what's really fun is like the creator was at like I think either San Diego or New York Comic Con, and their booth was like super humble, super chill, and it wasn't anything that was like too crazy. But they're the biggest selling freaking comic in the nation, and so I think that in itself is fun. And I feel like there's a huge disconnect as well. I think I was watching another YouTube channel earlier today. I'll send you that video later. But the guy was also at ComicsPro, and he was sharing about how what he learned from the ComicsPro, at least the retailers, was that they've given up the next generation to manga and webtoons. And I thought that was very interesting because I actually feel like there are some really big opportunities to onboard this new generation into comics, because if they're already used to reading comics through manga and webtoons, wouldn't it be really easy for them to dive into these like more complex stories in the comic book space? I mean, what do you think about that?
I think that's so important. I think that right now there's a trend on relying on the big Marvel movies or like another Avengers where it's just overstimulated. The story gets a little confusing. If you break it down further and really get these kids interested, that's a huge, huge way of keeping nostalgia going, keeping kids educated. Just your favorite stories don't have to die and kind of transform into, you know, the trend that you're seeing now.
Yeah,
I had Captain Underpants, you know.
yeah.
I remember Captain Underpants when that came out, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, this is
It's,
wild!"
it's
It
still a
was,
thing.
it was great,
It's still a thing, yeah.
and it's still popular. And I love that random thing that I remember is still going, and my friends' kids are actually able to talk about the same thing I grew up reading.
Yeah, in a past life, I actually produced the immersive experience as part of the movie launch. And so, yeah, we had all these like celebrity moms bring their kids, and we basically built out the world of like Captain Underpants. I wasn't less involved in that one because my team was like so passionate about it. Mary was like, "Oh my god, this is awesome! This is what I want to produce." But we had like a live screening, and like they walked in, and I think there was like we made a classroom so you could sit in the classroom and you could watch the movie. And then we had all these like the course, so you're actually like when you arrive, you're showing up to the school that these kids are from. And so I agree. I mean, Rod over there, High Evolutionary, mentioned that books have great grammar, vocabulary. It's learning some awesome stories. It's funny, like it's funny you say that because you know my personal story I've shared with Sarah before is comic books saved my life. I moved here as a kid from Hong Kong, 8 years old. I didn't know the culture. I didn't have any friends, and it was through getting my first, you know, X-Men that I started reading. I started learning about the culture, and then I got to go to the comic shops and like hang out with other folks to banter about, you know, what I read the last few weeks. And in a way, like to me, like you know, my dad's a pastor, but that was like my church. You know, like comic books was where I found, you know, friendships. And it's funny because if you think about it today, like how much of the pop culture is influenced by comic books we grew up reading today. So
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a huge Batman fan, so you
yeah.
couldn't probably go anywhere and not see a million Batman comics, but it really does bring people together, and everyone has their own Batman, their own version. I know we've also talked about eventually bringing in these illustrators and story writers that have worked on the older versions versus the newer versions, and how there's just so much mutual respect.
Yes, we want additional guests. So we will be interviewing guests and bring them in as well. But as I'm thinking, we're talking to Sarah, I feel like folks need to get to know you better too. Because I think you're hinting it through us talking through what we're doing with the show. But it's interesting because, you know, you mentioning that you play Magic the Gathering, you inheriting all these like Star Wars originals. I mean, I think a lot of the nerds in this space can relate where often like, you know, your legacy kind of comes through a lot of what you collect as well. So what are you into and how has the cosplay journey been like since even moving to LA?
It's really been incredible. You meet people that are from all walks of life, and you will always find a connection with them. And it's pretty amazing to learn what else you'll like through those encounters. A lot of things I thought were just so disconnected that I liked. I'm like, okay, I play sports, but I also really, really love like Indiana Jones and like Elvira. And you don't necessarily have to physically go to a convention to meet those people. And I think one of our major things here is we want to bring all of those worlds together and introduce you to other things that you will most likely like that you may never be exposed to otherwise.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting too. And in a way, why we decided to stream too is our interests are actually very complementary, because you're definitely more into like the physical, the toys, the collectibles, and the like cosplay world. I definitely come from this like traditional comics, and even the comic art is kind of what I'm actually a collector of these days. So it's interesting, like even when I share some of the books I send you now, like how does that inform how you think about cosplay and collecting?
It's dangerous. It's very dangerous for me because I had my set like, okay, I'm not doing it professionally anymore. So I just go as my favorite things. I'm like, I'll go as Indiana Jones once a year. I'll go as Catwoman once a year. But now being exposed to more and more, you have this urge to do more, yes, not in a competitive way, but you see other people creating things and they're so open about how they did it, what it took. You just always want to find little things that you can improve and perfect. But the slippery slope here is you've introduced me to specific things that you want to get geekier. You want to get fully into it. You now are opening yourself up to, okay, I've done all of the classics or all of the things that anyone could recognize. Now I want to do something that only this specific type of collector will recognize, and they will come up to you and you will have a new family.
Interesting. So what's your approach? Like even your costumes, like they were pretty like done up. So did you make them yourself or did you buy them? Like what was kind of like
I started out just kind of like Disney bounding, and Disney bounding is basically like you will go to a theme park as your favorite character, but not in anything that's like copyright or Disneyland has this thing where they definitely do not want you to be confused with one of their actual characters. So I've actually been turned away before, like looking like in a full gown, you know, unless you're a small child, you probably shouldn't try to look like a replica of anything. But I started out just wearing clothes that were similar to what my favorite characters were wearing. And then I got really into making armor. I had a friend that was so talented in making Mandalorian armor. That was like his main thing. He started going to the Ren Fair and doing different types of weapons. There will be an episode where we delve into why on earth do I own this many faux weapons? Like if someone walked into my house right now, it's like, oh, it's cute. She has toys, but then there's like weapons everywhere too. I think even behind me, I might have.
Hilarious.
So you could go down a whole rabbit hole of like, wow, a broadsword versus like the batarang versus, you know, a lot of money can be spent there. So it's been wonderful to be reintroduced and kind of inspired. But, you know, it's like I said, you really don't have to invest a lot. There's always a way of creating something that you can be completely proud of.
Yeah, what I love about that too is you're truly a lover of the experiences, and you plan to get immersed in a way and also help others get immersed through your activities, right? So when I met you at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con. What other cons do you go to? And when you go, like, what are your days like typically?
Well, WonderCon is one that I have gone to for many, many years. That's coming up right here.
Yeah.
Gosh, end of March already. So I typically, sometimes I'll go even before work or other things I have to do. I've been known to go for like 3 hours and then leave and go do other things. But there's so many cons that I haven't gone to. And I'm to the point now where I have friends that are bronies. I have friends that are super into Ninja Turtles. I go to Ren Fair. So I typically now am like down to like one day of these beautiful events, but I get completely immersed. Like even if I go see a movie, I will wear something that's similar to the movie I'm watching. So for all the people who are obsessed with Halloween and dressing up, it's time now to just be weird and own it. Just
I
go.
know. Like, I feel like you ever go to like Little Tokyo in downtown? I feel like I
Yes.
walk around and like, you know, some of these kids are literally dressed like the anime characters. And it's just normal. It's just like their day to day. I feel like that's how you need to own it. Like, it's funny, even for me, I've been buying all these shirts. So like after this stream, I'm not gonna just wear my 24/7 shirts anymore. I've been buying a lot of like the shirts I used to wear growing up. You know, like
Oh,
you know,
yes.
all my yearbooks had like Punisher, Wolverine, like
Ah,
I love on them. So I kind of want to start, you know, wearing those clothes again. And so I think that's
I fully dress like a child most of the time. I think I've had this sweater since I was like 10, and I have my Star Wars pajamas on.
what
It's the beauty of streaming. I'm like, oh, we're comfy, we're cozy,
yep,
we're
that's the
with
way to go.
friends. It's the best. But
Okay.
I honestly, especially like living in LA, it's not even LA anymore. Everywhere you go,
Yeah.
there are pop-up bars. That's another thing we connected on, creating
Yep.
experiences, having nightlife background. I mean, the Star Wars bars out here, people just go to drink immersed in Mos Eisley. Like, it's just so beautiful. So there's really you don't need an excuse to have fun with everything you're doing.
It'd be fun too. We should do like a tour episode because I sent you like this a couple YouTube channels where they did like the OAX recap, right? They went to the whole like original art expo and they filmed all the artists that was there. They like talked to them. I think it'd be kind of cool to figure out like what's our perspective on those shows as well.
I will 1,000% be filming at WonderCon coming up. So for all of you just joining us, every single thing we attend we'll be covering for you, and hopefully we'll get to meet you there at some point as well.
Yes, and I know that we are streaming right now, but if you're watching this, comment below and just let us know what you want to see. We promise we'll read it before every episode to make sure that we're evolving the show alongside the community.
Absolutely. Whether it's cosplay makeup, whether it's what's in Carl's collection, whether it's we both have 2 dogs.
Yes,
We have co-hosts as well.
yes.
Yeah, we're just so exploratory right now and so new and just both so passionate about this. We were like, yeah, we could wait until it's perfect, but I want to do it now.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. That's kind of what we talked about, where let's just have these like as you know, because we literally have these talks just on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like this, and we're like, well, we'll just stream it now and then let it evolve over time. And so I also want to take opportunity to update our Kickstarter backers because I think, as you know, like building a business is very key when it comes to having a community. And so, like, if we don't have a community, we have nothing. And so, kind of this is our kind of bootstrap, humble beginnings. Kickstarter wise, I think for us, we worked so hard on it. And a lot of folks were telling us, like, man, you guys have a great community because you guys did really relatively well. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Good to know. So I think for me, I also always want to make sure that as much as we email updates, we also have like an easy way for people to come and we could send them to the stream and be like, all right, our updates are here as well. So I'll go through it really quickly and then, you know, we could kind of talk through it as well. Number one, we brought someone on board. His name is Zen. I would love for him to be on this show as well. I got introduced to him through Kevin Van Hook, who is a consulting editor for us. He is the creator of Bloodshot, creator of Ninjak over at Valiant. So he was a colleague of Sean Chen, who's the creator of Evermind. And once we connected, Kevin really opened up the world to me by sharing all these stories of like what it was like the early Valiant days, which is like one of my favorite imprints. And so Zen came on board because we need some help with just like building the production element. Like there's so many, like it's almost like a different language when it comes to like the printers and what they're asking for. So as much as like Jane, our graphic designer, and I would try to make, deliver things, it always comes back like, oh yeah, it's not there yet. And so thank God for Zen, who actually early on when he was introduced to us, he wanted to read our comics, and I guess he read our books, and we have about 30 issues now of the 10 titles finished, and he would just schedule time on my calendar every other week because I have a Calendly, and anyone who has it can schedule time, and I totally welcome that because if I have free time and you have access to my Calendly, go for it. Like schedule time, let's chat. And he would just schedule time every other week. And honestly, like it's one of those situations where like, I don't know what, he's a nice guy. I don't know what to do yet. We already have this and that. But every time he would just like throw ideas out there. And like, it was just like this 2 weeks ago, we're in this place where we're like, oh man, like the files came back again. We send them what they needed, but we're still missing certain things. And I was saying, actually, have you had experience helping integrate like Kickstarter with fulfillment and the printing process before? He's like, yeah. He's like, that's what I do for Tyler Kirkham. I do this for Artist Elite, which is Sean's label imprint. And I didn't know that. Hey, what's up, kiddo? You know what? Real quick, let's talk about Kickstarter. Can you please introduce our co-host?
This, everyone, is Nacho. He's like almost allowing me to be on here, but he's also like, it's still raining. Get out of here. Go raise some funds here. But I'm glad to know that we have Zen now, because we're idea people. We need someone to organize our brains sometimes and keep us kind of focused. Like, thank you, Nacho. He's gone already. Boogie, do you want to say hi real quick? Come on. This is Boogie.
Hey, Boogie. How's it going? Now you feel like I have to introduce my co-host, but I'll bring him next time. They're downstairs.
Your co-hosts don't crush your legs when they say hi. I'm like, I love those.
Yeah,
okay,
much smaller.
Yeah, we're gonna have to note to self, make a barricade next time.
Yes. So yeah, Zen has been a lot of help. He's definitely been super supportive. He's also a huge fan of some of the books that we haven't released yet, and so he's gonna be helping us with some of the next Kickstarter. So just kind of as a live announcement, you heard it here first. He's actually building our next Kickstarter as we speak, and we're super excited. So we'll have more announcements surrounding that. Number 2 was ComicsPro, which I already touched on. Huge recap there. So if you haven't seen that yet, check that out. And then Evermind, we left a few preview pages. So for those of you who haven't seen the campaign, just go to Kickstarter and search Evermind. On the updates, we left 3 new preview pages, 1 from issue 2, and then 2 from issue 3, which are very unique moments that I think are pretty special in itself. I'm not even sure if I could share the screen. Let me see. Let me see if I could share the screen. Oh, actually, I know I can here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share the screen here.
I wonder if I'd be able to find, because I think my first...
Boom. Can you see it?
There it is. Yes.
Yeah,
all right.
Cool. So search Evermind on Kickstarter. Go to our updates. You can actually read this update. This is a public update. And some of these new pages, man, oh my God. Sean is a master. I mean, this is such a monumental moment in the story. But there's not a lot of context to what's happening here. But man, just the emotion and the crises happening around this moment is super powerful. Yeah. This is also a really cool moment because, and I could probably just talk about this, and if you look at the visual itself, it kind of tells a story. But Evermind is really about this world where Lucas Zhang, who's based on Daniel Wu, he's created this technology that allows you to transfer your consciousness into androids, right? And it kind of begins with just people being able to live in these other bodies. And this was one moment of application and utility where this old man who's sitting in a wheelchair is freaking playing basketball, right? Living a second life. And so this was a bit of actually it's funny, it's a flashback from within our story. And this last piece, maybe, kind of a spoiler, but not really, because everyone knows that at the end of the day, this whole story began with a sketch of this mech gorilla and this mech female bot. And, hopefully this kind of gives you a preview as to a heartwarming moment that's to come in what happens with this story. So that's kind of the other part of the story. And then we also want to, announce today, obviously we got to introduce Sara, and then we also want to support some of our friends as well. So for example, Swaggle he runs a channel that really focuses on comic book collecting. He himself is a creator. We'll definitely have him on this show as well. So we would encourage our friends to go and actually support his project. He's a writer himself. We go way back, probably almost like definitely over a decade, maybe a little bit more. But we were in the music industry together. So when I used to manage artists, Swaggerhouse is a director, and so he basically is a creative himself. And I saw him show up on his YouTube channel over the pandemic, and then turns out he wants to start writing comics as well. So he did a very successful first Kickstarter, and then we encourage you just to go here and press notify me on launch, because that matters. I'll help with that way. And then the second friend of ours, Dinesh from Bad Idea, he former publisher of Valiant Comics. I've already saved his, but he has Tankers coming out, which is awesome. Who doesn't love dinosaurs, right? And so he's been a great help. He was huge, instrumental in helping us with our first Kickstarter and giving us a lot of advice on what to do. And so definitely want to thank them for that. And then, yeah, last but not least, this really kicks off our whole streaming schedule. So I'll stop sharing there. So that was kind of, hey, what's up, Jinzo, Jector? Great to meet you.
Welcome. Amazing. I definitely think we will be sharing where we are going to be in the world.
Yeah.
At some point too. Carl is going to be all over the world again.
I'm traveling a lot. Yeah. Yes. So our next scheduled stream, I think, is March 25th. Maybe we could talk after this, and like, if we decide to do it sooner, we could trial me on the road kind of thing.
Yeah.
That might be interesting. So as of, I came up with ComicsPro, which is Pittsburgh, and then we're going to be, I'm going to be heading to Emerald City this Wednesday, and then I'm going to Denver right after that, and then I come back for a week, and I head to Singapore, and then from Singapore I come back and I go to the Bay Area, and then I'll land right back a week before WonderCon. So we'll definitely be at WonderCon. We should definitely shoot some content there, but I would love to hear from the audience too what they want to see.
Absolutely. Yes, we definitely want to know what our we read it for you should be. We definitely know what's trending, but we have such an appreciation for the small things. I've already learned so much, even just going over comic book terms. I feel like if you enjoy this process, you're going to enjoy the more you know what really is going on back here. There's so much effort and so much talent that go into creating even just a single issue.
Oh my gosh.
Definitely going to be a big focus. I mean, my mind was blown, and I'm like someone who enjoys dissecting things, and I'm just every single day learning a new term or a new moment, and just how much collaboration really goes into this.
Yeah, I wanna put a kind of put a tab on that, because I feel like we should have an artist come, and we should definitely talk to one of our writers. I think Justin Jordan would be a great writer that has like a wealth of information that we should bring on. Sean's always a great,
I would love that.
Just like a wealth of knowledge.
I get rosy thinking about him, because he was the first artist that signed a comic like in front of me for me.
It's great, yeah. And then I think you could ask him some of the questions that I feel like a lot of us who are too close to it may not ask, and I think that's important. And I would love for a lot of the artists to share their process, because like one of our friends, Bernard Chang, like he has a total process in the way he does things, and he works so hard to deliver books for Marvel and DC. And so I think it'd be kind of cool to make sure that we hear from the creators themselves and what that process looks and feel like.
And how personal it is. I think sometimes people like me, we don't realize, this wasn't a pre-discussed beginning and ending. Things can pivot, things can change, things are like in the mood of the artist themselves. So really the final product is just so authentic and so special. Yeah. And when you're in the industry, maybe you do tend to overlook that sometimes. And when you're completely outside of it, I don't know, I guess I was under the impression that there was some sort of mold that every comic book hit. And you're really just going to get into knowing just how special this all is.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially like even the layers of, for me, I think a lot of like my perception on the industry changed one, obviously, when I started, beginning this publishing business, but I actually realized after this weekend, I haven't really started publishing yet. I feel like I've been producing, which is the world I came from, and I've been packaging, but I think publishing is like a whole different world, and it takes a village, right? But I think collecting comic art has helped me a lot, because I found great friends who we talk about the art, we talk about the process, even the way they appreciate the art and why is so important. We have art reps like Felix Comic Art. I think hands down, he's probably the most successful, and it's kind of hard to argue. I think people see him as like the art rep that really changed the game. So I would love to have him come on the show and share about his process, his journey as well, because you'll get a kick out of this. He actually was a professional toy dealer. So he used to travel to Japan, and he actually bought toys for like celebrities and like director and famous people that actually wanted certain toys but couldn't find. But he had the hookups, and then he would go set up booths at San Diego Comic-Con to sell these toys. And so this transition of like comic art rep made a lot of sense. So I would love to have someone like him on board, who's like a subject area expert and has a really strong view on art, especially modern art, because he recognized that a lot of value are often captured on secondary market, but he's been able to build an ecosystem and an engine that ensures that all his creators are getting all the value for the art that they deserve. And so that in itself, I think it's a great topic to explore as well.
That's a huge topic. Just having friends at 3D Retro, our buddy Kai, he's a collector of many things. There's so many cool connections that we want to explore. Streetwear, kicks, figures, pin trading. Like it really is never ending. It is so cool. You're going to just realize that once you,
This is a new 24/7 comics pin. So I actually gave this away at the ComicsPro, and it was cool because we used to have the purple 7, and we changed it to the 24/7, the gold 7, and it actually looks really cool because I feel like it feels right. And so we went and gave this away as like a limited edition. We have some left, so we should definitely do some giveaways today as well.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
What else? What else were we gonna cover on this episode? So introducing Sara, ComicsPro, the concept of this book club. We'd love some feedback overall as people are watching this. How do we stand out? How do we provide value for you? If, let's say, you want to read a particular issue, you don't have time. If you want to brush your teeth and hear a story, it makes sense for us to have our friends come on and read with us. It's just us narrating. So we'd love some feedback and thoughts, like leave in the comments. But yeah, I think overall, timing wise, I think we've talked about is it a Monday night, every Monday kind of thing, or like we switch it around and bounce around and just promote it? Did we give people enough time with just, I think today was like a 7-hour heads up kind of thing. I don't know if we need to schedule a little further. So so those are all things that we could definitely use help and support and feedback on, and we're all ears.
Absolutely. I am definitely down to be an on-the-scene reporter. I typically go to tons of pop-ups, whether it's like holiday or here in LA, we just have a pop-up for just about anything. So if there's something you want to see, maybe you don't live in town, let us know. We're happy to go attend, show you around, show you some pictures from it, discuss it with you. I feel like now it's starting to happen everywhere. So whatever interests you that you think should be covered, we're very open to it. I'll definitely bust a mission.
Yes. So we are in service of you, the community. So just talk to us, leave comments, and we will do what you guys want us to do. And so with that said, I mean, speaking of in service, we could probably start wrapping up the show with a giveaway. Like, how should we do these giveaways?
That's the hard part.
And what should we give away?
I'll just give away everything, you know that. So
let me see this giveaway box. I think you know what? I'll do this. I think this is a fun one. I have a few comic slabs here. But since we talked about Kevin Van Hook and Sean Chen today, this is Bloodshot number 7. I don't know if you guys can see this, obviously. Let me see. There you go. Bloodshot number 7. This is the first appearance of Colin King in the Ninja costume. So Ninja is now Ninja K. And so this is his first appearance. It's a 9.4. I think I sent this out when I was a little kid or something. And it came back as 9.4. And I would love to give this away. And I'll ship it to someone that deserves it. But how do we give this away? I don't think we could give it away with the audience today. We don't have a huge audience. But for those who actually watch till the end of the show, we should definitely reward them in some way. So what do you think? Like, do we play the comments? I've seen like other channels actually do like a spinner with like the people that are there live. So I think in the future, just letting us know, we will do these giveaways live. But for this one, I think we're gonna do something. What do you think? Like with the comments or something? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think maybe anyone who's watching this, we should have a date or time picked, maybe tomorrow. And it should be maybe a message to our Instagram or a comment on our YouTube.
Okay, interesting. So name a time tomorrow, and what do you think?
Entries must be received by this time tomorrow.
Yes, I like that. So we'll limit it. Maybe we should give them a little bit more time, since I think we could spread this out a little bit, because that way at the end of this we could say, hey, they're watch through the whole thing and
we could even do it on our next stream, since you're going to be traveling a bunch. That's our first giveaway. Okay. I just have so many ideas coming up in my head.
You're right. Let's not complicate it. Let's make it like live audience giveaway. The next one will be Bloodshot. Obviously, Vin Diesel live will give away, and then we'll give away something else as well. We'll kind of build it up. But the idea is, over time, tell your friends, join us, and then we want you guys to be part of the experience and immerse in this as well. And I think the next stream, we will go through the book review and read the book itself. But we should maybe even have a guest. It'd be kind of fun to figure out, who could join us.
Definitely. My giveaways will most likely be custom cosplay things. I'm going to pick a winner. You're going to tell me who you're going to cause as, and I will contribute to that outfit. Whether it be weaponry, makeup, it will be specific to you, but I definitely want to help create with you.
Nice. Jinzo said a randomizer would be cool. Yeah, we could do that. I mean, how many people are on?
Jinzo, you're going to win something just for being awesome. Send this man a new pin.
Yeah, exactly. I won't, you know what we got to do? We got to figure out this whole pin thing. I need to figure out how to package it and ship it. But, with that said, I think for us is, I like that. I think maybe we comment. How about this? Between now and our next stream, everyone who comments gets to enter it into our giveaway for Bloodshot. Okay? So that's that. And then we'll give away something again at that show.
Love it.
We'll post it in the Kickstarter. Okay, Jeremy, thanks for that note. We'll post it in the Kickstarter earlier. So I think we'll try to schedule a little ahead of time. I think I think now that we've done this, Sarah and I, we could like brainstorm a little bit on the next few shows, and then we'll get flyers done, because we were kind of just waiting for the flyer. So
we were definitely.
Once we get the flyer, then we could post it and make it happen. So you guys all heard it. Here's how to win this Bloodshot. Post in our comment. You know what? Let's be specific. Post in a comment on a comic that you want us to read live and talk through, and then get your friends to do the same. And then at the next episode, we will basically read through the book and then kind of work with you guys to figure out the best way to discuss these books and really make this a book club. And hopefully the idea is really like not just us reading, but like getting a lot of us to read together and reflect on these stories. How's that sound?
I absolutely love it. Make sure check out our website, check out the Instagram. Everything is just up to date constantly. There's going to be a lot of travel, so there's going to be a lot of things that we won't have time to cover until our next stream. So definitely make sure to like and follow.
Yes, like and follow. the Nerdy Barbie, right, on Instagram,
Yeah.
and also 24/7 Comics HQ on Instagram. So thank you everybody for your time, and thank you Rod, Jeremy, Jinzo, Sarah. We did it!
Woo!
Woo!
Stream 1, baby.
Yes, stream 1 is down, and don't forget, comment below. Thank you for everyone who's watching this later as well, and we will see you next time.
See you soon.
Bye.